Hello everyone, and today we're going to be solving quadratic equations with the quadratic formula, this time using radicals as our answer. Now typically we're going to see this in Algebra 2 more than Algebra 1. So again, if you are in Algebra 1, it doesn't hurt to watch this and see what you're up against. And again, Algebra 2s, this is more for you. Again, one thing you are going to need right off the bat is your calculators, so make sure you have those handy and ready to go. All right, so here we go. Let's get started. All right, so let's quickly review, again, for those of us who have not seen the quadratic formula before. Okay, now this first one right here, so remember, folks, that this right here is standard form of a quadratic, okay? So again, what we're going to be looking for here, well, down here is actually the quadratic formula that we're going to be focused on. Now, again, let's note our key pieces. When we're doing the quadratic formula, we're only interested in the a value, we're interested in the b value with the sign, and we're interested in the c value with the sign. Okay, so when we do that, our a value, when we substitute in negative b, so we take our b value, oh, wrong color, sorry. So we take the b value, whatever that was, and we fill it in plus or minus square root of b squared, so we take our b value and squared it, minus 4 times my a value, okay, times the c value, all divided by my 2a. And again, these pieces up here relate to the pieces down in the quadratic function, okay? So let's take a look at a few examples and see how this thing works. All right, so for our first example, we're going to have something like this, okay? So first thing we have to do is make sure that one side of the equation is equal to 0, which it is. Okay, now that one side is 0, we're only after the coefficients and the constant. We don't care what the variables are doing. Okay, so my a value is going to be 1. My b value is going to be negative 2. My c value is going to be negative 3. Okay. So now we're going to use our formula, okay? So x equals negative b. So negative 2 is positive 2. Plus or minus radical b squared. Negative 2 squared is going to be positive 4. Okay? Minus 4 times a, which is going to be 1, times c, which is going to be negative 3. All divided by 2a, or 2 times 1. Now, here's where you have to be careful, folks, and this is where a lot of people screw up the quadratic formula, is here. When they're doing this part, okay, they seem to forget about the negative. This negative with the negative 4 is going to follow you when you're distributing, okay? So we're going to do the negative 4 times 1, and then take that answer and times it with the negative 3, okay? Whatever sign the answer of all that is the sign that we put between the 4 and the answer, okay? So, whoops. So here we go. X equals 2 plus or minus radical 4. Now, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. All divided by 2. Okay. So now we're going to do the math under the radical. X equals 2 plus or minus radical 16. All divided by 2. Let's shrink that down so I can do some work. Now we're going to evaluate the radicals and pull out our perfect groups if we can. Okay. So x equals 2 plus or minus, now the square root of 16 is 4, so that works out nice for us. Okay. And now here, because I've got a nice answer here, I can evaluate using the positive and negative solution sets. So x positive. So 2 plus 4 divided by 2. Well, 2 plus 4 is 6 divided by 2, which is going to be 3. Now the x negative says we're going to do 2 minus 4 divided by 2. Now 2 minus 4 is negative 2 divided by 2, which is negative 1. So my solution set for this, x is going to equal to 3 and negative 1. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Again, when you get a nice number where the radical was, you have to give me the double solution set, the positive and negative. Okay, so let's go to the next one. All right, so again, when we're looking at this one, first thing we do is make sure that one side of the equation is equal to 0, which it is. So now my next step is I'm going to get my ABCs. So my 1 is my A. My 9, positive 9 is B, and the positive 5 is your C. Okay, so now we're going to set up in the quadratic formula. So x equals negative B, so negative positive 9 is negative 9. Plus or minus radical B squared, 9 squared is 81. Okay. Minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is 5. All divided by 2A, or 2 times 1. Okay. So now we start. X equals negative 9 plus or minus radical 81. Now, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Times that by 5 is negative 20. All divided by 2A, or 2 times 1, which is just 2. Okay. So now I'm going to do the work under the radical here. X equals negative 9 plus or minus radical 61, all divided by 2. Okay, and I'm going to shrink this so I can have more room. Now, here at this point, okay, now if we were using decimal answers, we would evaluate the radical. But here, we're going to try to break down 61 and try to get our perfect groups to come out of the radical. Or, if you're using a traditional way of looking at square roots, okay, you're going to try to be looking for perfect squares to kick out. But 61 really doesn't have anything other than 1 and 61. So I can't break down this radical. So it's going to stay like this. But here's where it gets a little tricky, and depending on your teacher, okay, the Algebra 2As, which is what I usually teach, they tell you we need to split this at the plus or minus so we can see if we can do any extra reducing. So they would do this. X is equal to negative 9 halves, because the negative 9 over 2. Then we throw the plus or minus in here, because that's this guy right here. Then we would have radical 61 over 2. And then see if you can reduce it, which we can't do anything. So some teachers say that this should be your given answer, which is fine. Okay. Other teachers will say, okay, looking at this, you'd have x equals negative 9 plus or minus radical 61 divided by 2. And you say, well, looking at this, I can't reduce negative 9 and 2. Now, technically, there's a 1 hiding in front of this radical 61. I can't reduce 1 and 2. So therefore, you can leave the answer as this. So again, it all depends on your teacher and how they want you to write your answer. Okay. For my guys, again, I know that these two things are equivalent. They're the same thing. So if you gave me that on a test, I would accept both of them. They're both technically correct to me. But again, this is where if you have a different teacher, they may say, well, you have to do it this way. Or they say, you can do it this way. Know your teacher, know what they're looking for in terms of giving you your answers. All right, let's look at the next one. All right, so first things first. Let us make sure that one side of this equation is equal to 0, which it is. So let's go get our A, B's, and C's. So my 1 is the A. Okay, negative 12 is B. Positive 36 is my C. Okay, so let's go into the formula. X equals negative B. So negative 12 is positive 12. Plus or minus radical B squared. Negative 12 squared is positive 144. Minus 4 times my A value, which is 1, times my C value, which is 36, all divided by 2A, or 2 times 1. Okay, so now at this point, now let's do the work under the radical. X is equal to 12 plus or minus radical 144. Hey, Gwen Gwen. You got Cheetos? My goodness. They're very nummy. I'm glad you think so. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Times that with 36 is negative 144.
I like it.
You like them. Well, that's good. And 2 times 1 is 2. Okay. So now let's do the work under the radical here. X equals 12 plus or minus radical 0 divided by 2. Now, I'm going to shrink this, and then we need to discuss. Because of the fact, a lot of times, here's what I see my students do. They see this and go, radical 0? Well, I can't do anything with radical 0. There's got to be no solution. And that's where you'd be horribly wrong. Because radical 0 can be evaluated. Okay? If you think about it, what number times itself gives you 0? It would be 0 and 0 divided by 2. Okay? So now, it's delicious, huh? Now, because this right here where the radical once was is a nice number. Yeah. We are going to have to give the positive and negative solution sets. Okay, so the positive says we're going to do 12 plus 0 divided by 2. So 12 plus 0 is 12 divided by 2. Therefore, x is going to equal to 6. Now, when I do the negative solution set, careful, Gwen, you're going to spill those. You're going to have 12 minus 0 divided by 2. 12 divided by 2, which is, again, 6 again. Now, this is where knowing your teacher is going to be very helpful here. Because you can write this... Here, take them. They're yours. Writing this answer set depending on your teacher, okay? So, some teachers will say you have to write it as x is equal to 6 and 6. Some say you have to do that. Some teachers are going to say, well, I really got 6 twice, so it really means x is just 6. You can write it like that. Or, some teachers may even say, you're going to write it as x equals 6 with the letters dr underneath. D meaning double, R meaning root. We would say it's a double root because the number 6 appeared twice in my solution. Okay? So again, this is where knowing your teacher is going to be very helpful getting you the right answer. Again, for me, I would accept all 3 of these answers because they're the same thing. But again, some teachers are a little more fussy about that, so just be careful. Know your teacher and how they like the answers written. Alright, let's take a look at this next one. Okay, so first things first, we need to make sure, does one side of this equation equal to 0? The answer is yes. Alright, so now let's go get our ABCs. Now notice there's a negative in front of the x squared. So that means there's a negative 1 here. That is my A. My B value is going to be the positive 4. The C value is going to be positive 12. Okay. Alright, so let's go to the quadratic. Okay. So x is equal to negative B. So negative positive 4 is negative 4. plus or minus radical b squared. 4 squared is 16. Minus 4 times my a value, which is negative 1, times my c value of 12. All divided by 2a, or 2 times negative 1. Okay. Now we're going to do the work under the radical. We're going to focus here. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus radical 16. Now negative 4 times negative 1 is 4. 4 times 12 is positive 48. All divided by negative 2. Okay. So now let's do the work under the radical. X equals negative 4 plus or minus radical 64 divided by negative 2. Okay. So now we're going to evaluate the radical 64. Here, I'm going to shrink this down. That doesn't sound good. I'm going to have to check those garage springs. Those don't sound good at all. All right, so here we go. X equals negative 4 plus or minus 8, all divided by negative 2. And again, because I got a nice number here, okay, we're going to evaluate. Yes, thank you. You have my phone. X positive says we're going to do negative 4 plus 8 divided by negative 2. So negative 4 plus 8 is going to be 4 divided by negative 2, which is negative 2. Okay. Now for the x negative. It says we're going to do negative 4 minus 8 divided by negative 2, which is negative 12 divided by negative 2, which is 6. So my solutions, x is going to equal to negative 2 and positive 6. Okay, so there's that one. All right, now here's where it gets a little more interesting. And because most of you are going to be Algebra 2 students that are going to be viewing this video, I'm going to teach you kind of a little trick with this. Well, a couple of tricks. So let's start with the first part. Easy. Does one side equal 0? Yes. Now you're going to notice here, I'm missing something. In order to use the quadratic formula, you need your a's, b's, and c's. Well, I have x squared. I have my a value. I have my c value, but I'm missing my b value. Okay? So I need to fill that spot, and I'm going to fill it with a 0. So 2x squared plus 0x minus 18 is equal to 0. Now, here's a trick. I'm going to factor out GCF on this. Okay, to make my number smaller. And yes, you can do this. So we're going to do 2. We're going to have x squared plus 0x minus 9 equals 0. Now, when I'm doing the quadratic formula here, I don't need this. It's not going to be part of my answer, because if you remember solving by factoring, I would do this, and 2 equaling 0 doesn't make sense. We had to throw the answer away. So this 2 out here, I don't even need, okay? So we're going to focus what's in the parentheses here. So my a value is going to be 1. My b value is 0. And my c value is negative 9. Okay? So let's go to the quadratic. X equals negative b, 0. Plus or minus radical b squared. 0 squared is 0. Minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 9. All divided by 2a, or 2 times 1. Okay. So now let's evaluate. X equals 0 plus or minus radical 0. Now negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Times negative 9 is positive 36. All divided by 2.
I love you.
I love you too, Gwen. That's nice. Okay, so let's shrink this down. Whoop. Okay, now let's evaluate under the radical. X equals 0 plus or minus radical 36 divided by 2. Yeah. Evaluate the radical. Now again, this is going to be just as a nice number again. So I'm trying to do basic example here. Okay, so now because this is a nice number here, let's do our positive and negative solutions. X positive says 0 plus 6 divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is indeed 3. Whoops. The X negative says we're going to do 0 minus 6 divided by 2, which is negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. So my solutions, X is equal to 3 and negative 3. What? That's just the quadratic formula, Gwen. All right, let's move on. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to begin. Does one side of this thing equal 0? The answer is yes. Okay. All right, so one side 0. So let's do our ABCs. So negative 2 is my A. Negative 1 is going to be my B. And negative 3 is going to be the C. All right, so here we go. X equals negative B. So negative 1 is 1. Plus or minus radical B squared. Negative 1 squared is 1. Minus 4 times A, which is negative 2, times your C. Great, you're always climbing. All divided by 2A, or 2 times negative 2. Alright, so let's do the math under the radical. X equals 1 plus or minus radical 1. Negative 4 times negative 2 is 8. 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. All over negative 4.
I got Cheetos.
Okay, you got Cheetos. Alright, do that up. X equals 1 plus or minus radical negative 23 divided by negative 4. Now, here's where we have our problem. And again, most of you are going to be algebra 2s. And you should recognize by now that a negative under the radical means we're going to be dealing with imaginary roots. So to evaluate imaginary root, remember, negative 23, you start by kicking out the negative. The negative is going to kick out as an I. Then you try to break down 23. Well, are there any perfect squares in 23? No, because 23 is prime. Okay, so we're going to rewrite this radical as x equals 1 plus or minus I radical 23 all over negative 4. Okay, now here again is, now we try to reduce and pull things apart. Now again, depending on your teacher here, this is where it can get really, really dicey. Because some teachers will say you got to pull this apart. So you'd say x is equal to 1 plus or minus, or 1 over negative 4 plus or minus I radical I radical 23, not negative 23. Let me see if I can get rid of that. I'll just do this. Okay, so 23 all divided by negative 4. Gwen, I really hate when you're back there. Okay, you can write that. Okay, now some math teachers are going to say, I don't like the negative in the denominator. So you may have to write it as x equals negative 1/4 plus or minus negative I radical 23 all over 4. I've seen it written that way. Okay. Okay, let me scooch this up because I need more room. I got 2 cells going on here. Okay. Or another teacher may say, well, I don't like those ways. You can leave it together. So you could say x is equal to 1 plus or minus I rad 23 all over negative 4, which is what we had up in the beginning. you're stuck. Or, again, some math teachers say, I don't like that negative, so you would have to write it as -1 plus or minus -I radical 23 all over 4. So again, 4 different ways you can write this answer, so make sure you know what your teacher likes. Okay? So let's move on. Alright, so here we go. Let's take a look at this next one. So first things first, does one side equal 0? The answer is yes. So let's go get our ABCs. Okay, 5 is going to be my A. 4 is going to be my B. And -7 is going to be my C. Okay, so let's fill in our formula. X equals -B. So +4 is -4. Plus or minus radical B squared. 4 squared is 16. 4 times A, which is 5, times C, which is -7, all over 2A, or 2 times 5. Okay. All right, so let's start evaluating. X equals -4 plus or minus radical 16. Now, -4 times 5 is -20. Times that is positive 140. 40. There we go. All divided by 10. Because 2 times 5 is 10. All right. Now let's put together under the radical. X equals -4 plus or minus radical 156 divided by 10. Okay, now scrunch this down, because now we need to break down the radical. Okay. Now again, depending on your teacher, I do kind of what I call the European method. Is we're going to make a factor tree and kick out perfect groups. You may know it the American way of just finding your perfect squares and throwing those out. So again, depending on how you do it, doesn't really matter here. But I'm going to do it my way since it's my video. So 156. And again, my students love to do this. 2, and that's going to be 78. 2 is prime. So then we can break down 78. That's going to be 2. And that's going to be 39. Now 39 I can break as 3 and 13. And 13 is prime, so we can't do anything else. So X equals -4 plus or minus radical, and I put these back, so 2 times 2 times 3 times 13, all divided by 10. Okay. Now I'm going to be looking to take out perfect groups. So since the index of the radical I can't see, it's automatically a 2. So I'm looking for perfect groupings of 2, which I got one right here. So this is going to come out of the radical as a 2. Now I've got only 1 3 and 1 13, so I can't do much with that. Okay, so I'm going to put this all together now as X equaling -4 plus or minus 2 radical. Now I'm going to multiply these back together as 39, all divided by 10. Now, here again, knowing your teacher. Again, my students, I tell you guys, got to pull it apart. So you're going to have -4 divided by 2 plus or minus 2 radical 39, all divided by 10. Oh, I don't know why I put a 2 under there. Hold on, guys. That should be a 10. Okay, and now I can see, I can look at this and say, well, I can reduce this. 4 and 10, and this 2 and 10 I can reduce. Okay, so that's what I'm going to have to do to simplify this. So -4 over 10 can reduce to -2 over 5, plus or minus. Now this is going to become 2 over 10 is really 1 radical 39, all over 5. And again, as a pulled apart answer, it would look like this. Now again, this is where your variations of the answers are going to start coming into play here. Okay, because you can write it like that. I've seen teachers say, well, because the denominators are the same, you can write it as -2 plus or minus radical 39 all divided by 5. You could write it this way. Okay? You can write it like that. Okay? So again, all depends on how your teacher likes to see the answer is going to determine how you're going to write this. Okay? So just be aware of that. Okay? All right, let's go to the next problem. All right, so let's take a look at this one here. Okay, so first thing we do, make sure one side's 0. Remember, if it's not, you need to make that happen in order to use the quadratic formula. All right, so let's go get our ABCs. So here's my A. Here's my B. Here's my C. Oh, B. Okay. All right, so let's fill in our formula. X equals negative B. So negative positive 7 is negative 7. Plus or minus radical B squared. 7 squared is 49. Minus 4 times my A value, which is negative 4. Times my C value of 8. All divided by 2A, or 2 times negative 4.
Who's that?
Who is that? I don't know. It looks like that looks like a pencil to me. X equals negative 7 plus or minus radical 49. Now negative 4. Oh, thank you. Negative 4 times negative 4, 16. 16 times 8 is going to be positive 128. Divided by negative 8. All right, so let's evaluate. X equals negative 7 plus or minus radical. So we're going to do, we don't need that. So 49 plus 128, 8, is 177 divided by negative 8. Now, let's evaluate radical 177, see what I can break from this. So 177, I've got 3 and 59. So 3 I can't do anything, 59 I can't do anything with. So, there's no perfect groups that are going to come out of this. So, I'm going to have to leave it as it is. Okay? Yeah, sunshine. Now, especially seeing how it's going to be May 10th in a few days, and they're talking historic blizzard. What kind of crap is that? I hate you, 2020. But anyway, sorry I digressed. I apologize. This year, 2020, is terrible. Anyway, so now let's get our answer set. Now again, depending on how you want to write that, how your teacher likes this, okay, they may say, okay, so let's split this. Negative 7 over negative 8 plus or minus radical 177 over negative 8. Some teachers may say that's okay. Okay. I noticed the double negative here. I would at least reduce that. So some teachers... Oh, good. Nummy, nummy. 7/8 plus or minus. We're going to have radical 177 over negative 8. Or, again, let me move things up so we have more room to write our answers here. Or, some other teacher may say, well, I don't like the negative in the denominator, so you're going to write it as x equals 7/8 plus or minus negative radical 177 over 8. Some teachers say you could write it that way. Or some teachers will say, you know what, just move the negative up and combine it. So you'd have 7 plus or minus negative 177 all over 8. So again, like I said, depends on how your teacher likes this will depend on how you give this answer, okay? Oh, forgot to circle this. All right. So that's the end of this video. Hopefully you learned a lot, and I will see you the next time.